what we're seeing right now from Superman past its first weekend is that it's actually gaining ground on Man of Steel. Online. The biggest thing that we have to come away from with Superman is that it has to start the new thing, right? It doesn't have to be an explosion out of the gate, but 400 million, I think, coming in at the conclusion of its second weekend. Again, it's not awesome, but it sure as hell ain't bad. And I know there's people in the chat like Superman should do this. It should make $1 billion. It should, look, I get all that, but you got to remember that this movie is following up on several years of a lot of distaste for the previous kind of Zack Snyder brand of DC. And I understand there's some Snyder fans out there that loved it. I get that. But the problem is it didn't really appeal to nearly a broad enough audience out there. And it's why it became problematic. So they're trying to kind of redo this in a different fashion. And it's going to take people time to get, I mean, remember, not everybody watches YouTube. Not everybody's watching Geeks and Gamers or Nerdrotic or us here on the Renegade Nation or UPro or anybody else or Midnight's Edge. I see you out there, Tom. Pro has he already has a login backstage. I don't even send Pro a link. He just shows up.
I just fall through the door sometimes. I just drunkenly stumble into this place and say, "What are we talking about?" Hey, Valiant, I want to push back though, just gently.
I'll send it in a minute.
Gently. The gentle pushback is regarding Man of Steel. Man of Steel outperformed this adjusted for inflation by a lot, and I'm not trying to pick a fight here. What I'm trying to get at is the gentle pushback would be that I think Batman v Superman is what killed it all. I think that killed it. I think the Justice League was poorly received. And with this movie, what I'm looking for, and you tell me if I'm wrong about it, because you do know this better than I do when it comes to the movie math.
Man of Steel didn't make almost $1 billion, guys. It's on the screen right here. It made 660 million, 670 million, not almost $1 billion. Yeah.
Right.
But now, if you're talking about adjusted, if we're talking about adjusted numbers, I want to make that clear because I never know what figures, people in the audience just kind of blurt stuff out. And most people give me numbers and they're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Most people aren't. So if you were adjusting that for inflation, kudos to you. So I have the raw numbers up here, but yes, you're right. If Man of Steel was here today, it'd be close to $1 billion, right?
Right. So we're talking butts and seats. Butts and seats equals cultural impact and marketplace impact. So here's the thing I'm looking at, Valiant, and that is this thing goes up against Fantastic Four next weekend. Okay, so it's got basically 3.5 days left of runway. And then it has to give up all those IMAX. It has to give up all those premium screens, basically. And all that's going to go to Fantastic Four. And so what I want to see is, can it stay out of that high 60% percentage drop? Like if it can stay anywhere in the 50s or the low 60s, then I think, Superman. Then I think that this thing has a chance to get into the 650 to 700 realm for its end run. And if it gets wiped out by Fantastic Four, then I think that's really bad for cinemas because I'm not sure that Fantastic Four is going to do great. So what you could see is, and that's based on what we're hearing from reports, by the way, that's not just my conjecture. I would hate to see a situation where Fantastic Four comes in, gets all the premiums, and nobody goes to see it. And nobody goes to see Superman because they can't watch it in IMAX anymore. That's like the worst case scenario.
That is one of the problems, and that is one of the potential things that we needed to talk about because that very well could happen. Now, the thing is though, is that on the same vein is that if you have a situation where Fantastic Four is going to win the weekend next weekend, but what does it do after that? Do people look at it and do people believe the quote unquote hype that we're getting out there right now about how great it is, right? But the thing is, you look at Man of Steel, and this is one of the things that is heartening, right? Man of Steel opened domestically on unadjusted dollars about 3 million more than now. On adjusted dollars, it opened up significantly better than current Superman. And also in the second week, that's why I pulled this up, is that in the second weekend, Superman dropped and again, the weekend box office, again, let me show everybody. This is Man of Steel, okay? The opening weekend, it shows at 116, but again, Man of Steel opened up. They had a few days early. I think it was a 5-day opener, kind of like the other one. So it was 128, right? Versus 125, number one. Number two, it had a 65% drop into weekend two. A much more harsh drop than the 54-ish, because we don't know what the numbers are yet. These are estimates for Superman, right? We don't know what the final numbers are. And the numbers coming into this weekend here for Superman, where it was going to do between $55 and $60 million in its second weekend. So it's got it at 57,250, like right dead in the center right now. Now that could come in a little bit higher, could come in a little bit lower, but it's coming in right dead center of those range. Didn't overperform it, didn't underperform it either. They nailed it right at 54%, at least so far. It actually added a few screens this weekend. So from a drop standpoint, there seem to be more people coming back in, and saying, "Oh, this is fun," and we'll come back. I mean, 57 million in that weekend versus, did I close it by accident? Oh no, I didn't. Sorry. 57 million versus 41 million. Now, when you adjust the 41 million up on an inflationary basis to today's dollars, you're actually right about 57 to 59 million dollars. So what we're seeing right now from Superman past its first weekend is that it's actually gaining ground on Man of Steel from a standpoint of leg out, right? It's starting to gain ground just weekend over weekend, looking at those dollars, which tells me that audiences are reacting more positively to this version after it's out, right, than they were Man of Steel back in 2013. Now, for whatever reason, I mean, we can assume or presume a multitude of different factors that could be impacting that. But for whatever reason, audiences, by the numbers, even adjusted for inflation, seem to be kind of coming back in and wanting to hang on when you kind of do that, at least as well as the past Superman movie. Arguably better when you consider the drop off from weekend one to weekend two. So that being said, all right, Tom is here. Tom, come on in. What's up, dude?
How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Yeah, you pointed out some of the stuff I was going to bring up, but no, Man of Steel, like you said, dropped off 71% in its second weekend. That's the one thing I think most people are ignoring here. This is not just a good drop off for Superman or the DC. This is a good drop off for superhero movies in general.
Yes, exactly. Because
like 54% is unheard of. I'm trying to remember the last time we had a superhero movie that had that short of a drop off.
You're exactly right, Tom. Superhero films in the last 2 or 3 years have been dropping mid 60s to 70s.
And the MCU averages 60 to 70.
Win.
Yeah, like the average MCU, even the good films, the big films, have averaged 60 to 70 on their second weekend. So this is like what Valiant is saying. This is showing that, people are getting out there and seeing it. Maybe there was stuff going on last weekend that they didn't get out. Maybe they were just waiting to hear the word of mouth. Who knows? Whatever it is, this is unprecedented for the amount of percentage drop off. Now, it would have been nicer for Warner Brothers, I'm sure, to translate into a little bit more box office. Don't get me wrong. I mean, but they're 2/3 of the way of where we basically understand their need to be place is, because they keep feeding the number of 600 is what I keep hearing. So we'll see how it legs out. I've heard 2 or 3 different dates as far as PVOD and stuff like that. So we'll see where that lands, but it's still the 45 at least day window or more. So
this is what I wanted to bring up. Here we go. I thought I had this one open, so let me pull this one back in. Superman's $57 million second weekend propels Warner Brothers to top of the year-to-date studio market share with $1.32 billion. This is another aspect. Warner Brothers is not only leading the box office at this point overall with $1.32 billion. And granted, that is going to teeter-totter back to Disney next week when F4
I bet this hurt
out.
Deadline to write this, by the way.
To some extent. But here, here's the kicker is that you got to remember, and I'm going to do a video on this this week. But what we have to talk about is even if Warner Brothers falls back $100 million behind Disney, the profitability metric is so out of balance, it's ridiculous. I mean, Disney is still $500 million roughly in the hole this year.
Well, this is a little bit of vindication for me and you and whatnot, too, for those who have kind of pointed out how the press just wants to crap all over Zaslav and Warner Brothers Studios every chance they get. And I mean, even they just downgraded their stock even. And Mikey and I were pretty much like, yeah, this is a political move. This isn't any kind of like, because we've been saying like their movies, they're the only studio that has been making films that have been hits. The only two flops that they've had in the last couple of years that you can point at were Joker 2 and Furiosa. But for every Joker 2 and Furiosa, you got a Beetlejuice, or a Minecraft, or a Barbie, or something like that you can put up against it that, unlike Disney, like you just said, we're the only thing Disney has propping them up F1 this year. Sinners, F1. Yeah, exactly.
You look at, because again, Warner Brothers, again, we talk about F1. I got to remind people because F1 is a bit of a weirdo in that category. It's distributed by Warner Brothers in the US and the UK, but it's an Apple Studios film. And because Apple Studios is effectively a streamer, they don't have a theatrical distribution wing, so they partner out. So Warner Brothers had the financial responsibility to pay for a lot of the marketing to get the movie into theaters. But when you look at, what they've taken down so far, probably somewhere to the tune of about...
But they get the lion's share of the theatrical distribution.
$60 million probably has come back to Warner Brothers, and the rest of the other $140 million is probably already gone back to Apple. So, I mean, you're looking at this, and it's like everybody's really winning right now with F1, the way that was done, because that didn't have a retarded budget either. No. And you look at Superman here, but let me show you all this. Just as a point of comparative reference. DC Studios and Warner Brothers Superman has landed atop a second weekend of 57.2. And again, this is an estimate, which catapults the Burbank, California lot to the top of the studio domestic box office with $1.32 billion. Higher than Disney 20th Century Studios at $1.27 billion through July 20th. Again, Disney's bound to reclaim the top spot next weekend for the $100 million plus opening of F4, Fantastic Four. Because as of right now, it seems like the $125 million box office opening for F4 is on the high end of estimates, meaning that there's a good chance that F4 may not open as strongly as Superman did. We'll talk about that in a minute, though. Warner Brothers have had 6 movies open at number 1, more than any other studio this year, with 9 weekends at number 1. Now, again, does that mean anything in the grand scheme of things? Because we always take dunks on Disney when they brag about number 1 movie at the box office. And it's like, oh, you're still losing money. Look, if Disney wants to run around and tout that, then why not let Warner Brothers do it? At least in the case of Warner Brothers, when they tout numbers like this of having number 1, this, that, and the other thing, and how many number 1 weekends they've had, they can actually show a big fat multi-$100 million profit instead of a big fat multi-$100 million loss like Disney. That's a big difference. Okay. Warner Brothers has also had more $10+ million grossing days this year, more than any other studio. As of today, Warner Brothers has had 34 days of films grossing over 10 million. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Superman's second weekend ease at negative 54% is a percentile decline on par with Deadpool and Wolverine, better than the second weekend superhero holds we've seen year to date. Thunderbolts, negative 56, which again, Thunderbolts didn't open with anywhere near $125 million either. And Captain America Brave New World, down 68% weekend 1 to weekend 2. IMAX delivered another 7.2 million, 13% of weekend 2 for a running cum, and IMAX for Superman of $32.8 million. Now, some people in the chat were talking about other movies. Like we were talking about when it comes to the massive 60 to 70% average drops for superhero movies, we're specifically referring to post-COVID, Phase 4 and 5 Marvel, not Endgame and prior. So Black Panther, that kind of stuff. Marvel had good holds prior to Endgame, but they've completely broken it since then. And there's a really funny article out today with Kevin Feige in an interview he did, basically saying, we screwed up, if you read between the lines.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.